Hello guys. Today I'll be talking about magnetism. So what is a magnetism? What is a magnet? Well, a magnet is something that basically attract metal, right? Well, a magnet in general have north and south pole. And usually the direction of the magnetic field tends to travel away from the north toward the south. And the the magnitude of the magnetic field or tend to be present in space in every locations. So you can find it pretty much everywhere around the magnet, but you don't detect it because as the magnetism, as the electric magnetic field travel farther and farther away from the magnet itself, is basically weakened to some extent. And if you're very far away from it, you won't even feel it at all. And um, usually, it depending the magnet that we're talking about usually is a permanent magnet, which means that it's basically always have a magnetic field to it. But there's other type of magnet as well. One we can usually see is the one where the wires and there's a current, and the current induces a magnetic field. And if there's current, there's going to be a magnetic field. And usually, the current can travel in a straight line through a straight long wires, or can travel in a circular path or helical path, stretching over extended period of length, pretty much. And if you continue travel in that path, we call it a solenoid. And if it's entire loops, one loop, compact, and we know it's a loop because usually the radius is much longer than its length, and the solenoid usually the length is much greater than its radius. And the loop is the the currents also travel in the loop, but the ways we find the magnetic field are different depending on whether the currents are traveling in solenoid or travel in a loop or travel in a straight wires. There's three different equations that we can use to find the magnitude of the magnetic field. And the magnetic field is, like you know, is a vectors. So it's not x, y, z directions. And the way we determine where the magnetic field is by using the right hand rule. The thumb is usually the pointing where the current go, and the palm, the fingers, it's kind of curl around like a magnetic pole, curl around a wires that telling you where the directions of the magnetic field is. So let's say if the current is going upward, which we have this, and you have your palms, right? You curl around, let's say, imaginary wires. You know that since it curl around this way, you know that the direction of the magnetic field is going around the wires in these directions, which is basically counterclockwise compared to, let's say, clockwise in directions. It's counterclockwise if the wire is traveling upward. And if it's traveling downward, the opposite is true because it's traveling instead of counterclockwise traveled in clockwise position.